Greetings, everyone. Hey, first thoughts on a Friday. Yep, got my Steelers sweatshirt on. Hey, big game tomorrow night. Big game tomorrow night. So be watching at 8:15. But hey, let's forget about that for now. Let's look at first thoughts on a Friday at our gospel lesson for this Sunday, which is John the second chapter, verses 1 through 11. It's a story of Jesus turning water into wine. Who doesn't like a good story like that? Yay! But hey, it's more than just Jesus turning water into wine. It's the fact that John calls this a sign. The miracles that Jesus performs, Jesus or John calls them signs. They point to something other than the miracle itself. They're pointing toward who Jesus is and why he came. So keep that in mind. This whole thing of Jesus, this is the first of his signs, his miracles. Um, Chapter 2 kind of gives that away, doesn't it? But it's at a wedding feast. Where do we see wedding feasts? We see it all over the place in our Newer Testament. The parables have a lot of allusions to the wedding feast. The Old Testament, same thing. Wedding feast everywhere. Kind of a sign of God drawing closer to his people. God bringing about something new, which, hey, this is a wholly new relationship, a wedding. Okay, we have all that going on. The fact that it's wine, it's wine. Now, as we remember, this is 2,000 years ago. The water really wasn't that good to drink. That's why wine, which had fermented, basically had cleaned the water up, if you will, um, was the choice of beverage for practically every dinner meal that you sat down to. So you have that going on, but this is an abundance of wine, an abundance of wine. And we see that all through the Older Testament too. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wines. In that day, the mountain shall drip sweet wine. The hills shall flow with milk. Um, yeah, gotta have your milk in there. Remember, get your couple glasses of milk every day. What else can we talk about it? Well, the fact that the family ran out of wine, that's a big problem. That's a big social issue back in the day. So keep that in mind because when you prepare for a wedding, a couple of things happen. You start putting away the wine so you have it come wedding time. But also, when you send out invitations to guests, what we've discovered is the guests were kind of invited, so to speak, or asked to supply some wine for this feast. It lasted 7 to 9 days. It's a long, long celebration. You're coming from miles away. This is a big deal. Got to have lots of wine. So when Jesus gets around to changing the water into wine, he's saving the day and the honor of the bridegroom. How about this whole deal of Jesus' mom, Mary, telling him what to do? And Jesus' response. Did you catch that? Jesus' response? What's that got to do with me? Well, there's a little more to that than you think. It's not as harsh as what we would look at it today. It's actually the way a conversation would go on. What's that got to do with? That's not our problem. That's their problem. Well, Mary made it Jesus' problem, and Jesus comes through. The fact that these jars are empty. These are jars for purification rites. And if you think about it, most of these jars that we found in antiquity, they would contain about 20 to 30 gallons each. So you have anywhere from 120 to 180 gallons of water once they were filled. Gallons of wine. Holy mackerel. That's more than enough to last through the rest of the wedding feast. And by the way, wine is uplifted throughout the scripture as being a wonderful thing to drink, but drunkenness is never upheld as a wonderful thing to do. Okay, let's just keep that in mind. It's also interesting that these are the jars for purification. In other words, Jesus doesn't shatter these jars and start all over right from the get-go. Let's find something else to put this stuff in. No, he uses what was already there and fills it with something new. I wonder how significant that is. Is he talking here? The steward comes up and says, "Hey, where does wine come from?" He's asking this of the bridegroom. Bridegroom's probably scratching his head too. Well, that question is asked all through the Gospel of John. Where does the wine come from? Where does the Spirit come from? Remember Nicodemus? Where does the living water come from? Where does the bread that we're going to feed all these people, where's that going to come from? Isn't that interesting? That same word is used time and time again. And it all points back to the abundance that Jesus provides. Isn't that interesting? The very fact that this is called a sign. And that is so important. It's not called a miracle in John's Gospel. It's called a sign. Because as we mentioned earlier, John wants us to look beyond what just happened to who Jesus is and what he means for you and for me. Oh, there's a lot more we can talk about with this gospel text for today, but take a look at it. Again, it's John, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 11, and it gets us going in a great way in this Epiphany season as we have a better look at who Jesus is and what he means for you and for me in our life. 2,000 years later, he's still here. God's blessings be with you.